Wind is certainly far more economic than solar. Solar's had a very hard time coming down in costs.
Jim Dielson is a true American original. He pioneered wind power in the 1970s when everyone thought he was crazy. Today, he's still developing wind farms across the country for profit. Jim, what is the biggest benefit of wind power?
Well, we have this tremendous wind resource in America. 4 states could supply all of the electricity requirements for the country. There's parts of the Midwest that are referred to as the Saudi Arabia of wind for America. We're building turbines at only 3 of those machines over 30 years is the same amount of electricity as 1 million barrels of oil.
Wow.
We could really provide 30 or 40% of the electricity for the country in relatively short order. Germany, they now get roughly 6 or 7% of their electricity from wind.
But to really move forward, the wind industry needs help from the government. The oil industry receives tens of billions of dollars in federal subsidies and assistance every year. On average, wind developers get less than $200 million, and even that relatively paltry amount is periodically withheld.
It's really a case of getting the economics right.
But the federal government's given you subsidies, hasn't it?
On and off.
What do you mean on and off?
Well, it's been stop-start pretty much from the outset, typically being for 2 or 3 years at a time, then expiring. In the mid-'80s, the incentive program was withdrawn.
You mean they got rid of the subsidy?
And that really caused the industry to collapse.
Do we stop and start oil subsidies?
No, not that I know of.
So we could get between 1/3 to 1/2 of all our electricity from the wind.
That's right.
Let's see, get your energy from Bin Laden land, get your energy from the wind.
Yeah.
Which part of that sentence don't we understand?
Yeah, and if you have a clean resource that's homegrown, why not use it?
Opponents say that wind farms disrupt the natural habitat of the area, killing birds and plants as well as ruining the visual landscape. In light of this, developers are building more wind farms offshore and in less inhabited areas. But we need to be careful not to exaggerate the fate of a few species of birds when the fate of all species on Earth is at risk from global warming. Many of the alternative energies that could wean America from its dependence on oil are here and ready to be deployed. But they need long-term, consistent subsidies and research support from our government to make them competitive with oil. Unfortunately, our government's approach to renewables has been utterly inconsistent. But beyond renewables like solar, wind, and ethanol, there's another solution, one that requires no alternative energy sources at all. And it's good for business. It's simply a matter of energy-efficient design.
Okay, hairnet first.
Mine has footsies in it.
Oh, look at that.
Let's go.
In learning about ways to break our addiction to oil, I heard about an energy-efficient computer chip factory that Texas Instruments was building in Richardson, Texas, just outside Dallas. What struck me was the claim that being green is not only good for the environment, but is great for business and can actually keep jobs in America.
Similarly,
A few years ago, the top brass at Texas Instruments laid down a challenge. I feel like a baker's.
Yeah.
If their design team could figure out how to build their newest chip factory for $180 million less than the going rate of $600 million, they would build it in Richardson. Otherwise, the factory and all its jobs was going overseas. Paul Westbrook is the Sustainable Development Manager for Texas Instruments.
The dirtiest thing in a clean room is the people.
Oh, the things I do for this newspaper, I tell you. It's like a glove. Let's go. Let's rock and roll.
Let's go. So this is the clean room production facility. This is the main room where everything happens. And you can see we're starting to put up the last.
Paul, what went through your mind when your bosses said, you don't take $180 million out of this building, it's going overseas? I hope you speak Chinese.
What I really thought was, are they crazy? I mean, that's one of those things that's so large, you can't even fathom it. We all just thought, it's like a bad dream.
So what was the first phone call you made to try to solve that problem?
Well, when we started talking about sustainable building on a large scale, through a couple of meetings, we said, we should do this design session with the Rocky Mountain Institute. thing we really excelled at.
After a brainstorming session, the Texas Instruments design team figured out how to eliminate an entire floor of the factory. A huge energy saver.
The greatest innovation that we did on this project was to actually reduce the square footage. In the clean rooms,
Steve Penson is project director for the construction company.
green is not necessarily solar panels, and it's not solar hot water heaters, and it's not wind farms. It is efficient use of the space and the resources that you're given on the project.
The innovations include how air is cooled and recycled naturally, allowing the elimination of huge industrial air conditioners. Bigger water pipes with fewer elbows reduces friction and lets them use smaller energy-saving pumps. These design breakthroughs in efficiency, among others, are starting a new trend.
Before we started this project, actually, probably 10% of the proposals that came into our door, the people asking for us to build projects, were green. Now, over half of the proposals that we see come in are green related.
In the end, the project exceeded the savings goal by $40 million. The total reduction in cost was $220 million, and that doesn't include the $4 million Texas Instruments will save every year on energy consumption just by designing efficiently.
We can compete, just do it differently.
Shauna Sowell is Vice President of Worldwide Facilities for Texas Instruments.
Amazing things happen when people claim responsibility for creating the impossible. It generates new ideas, it generates passion, and we exceeded a goal that we thought was impossible. How exciting is that? And if you're a true competitor, there's nothing like winning.
But of course, that doesn't mean that competitors like China are losing. In fact, faced with a huge environmental challenge, the Chinese government has made sustainable development a top priority. Half the water in China's 7 largest rivers is useless today. 1/3 of the urban population breathes polluted air. Land for agriculture and living has been sharply diminished over the past 50 years. With so much pressure to become more environmentally sensitive, China is poised to become a major innovator of green technology.
There are 200,000 industrial design students in China, compared to 4,000 in the United States. So imagine 200,000 designers come into the marketplace designing products and systems. It's phenomenal. China is where the future will be defined.
Is it possible that a green China will pose a greater challenge than a red China ever did?
So that's your project right there.
That's our project right there. And that new city that you see with all the farms on the roofs is right here. And I can watch...
William McDonough is a world-renowned leader in designing and building green.
The construction.
As an architect, he's working to redraft our energy future by taking the concept of energy-efficient design to a whole new level.
And what I do is essentially take the ideas...
At his offices in Charlottesville, Virginia, he's laying out plans for what could become one of China's biggest experiments in environmentally sound development.
The houses essentially can last hundreds of years.
Bill's designs are based on a strikingly original concept that he calls cradle to cradle.
Cradle to cradle.
When you say cradle to cradle, what exactly do you mean by that?
It means we close all the cycles and stop the whole concept of waste. If you just look at this chair, it's an example of cradle to cradle. This is the new fabric selected for the Airbus 380. This one is designed to be composted safely.
In other words, if we plowed this into the ground,
It would become soil.
It'll become soil?
Safely.
So cradle to cradle is it started
Safe
from the earth,
material.
it goes through
back.
life as a chair and goes back to
Earth. That's one part of cradle to cradle. That's what we call biological metabolism. So things that go back to soil should all be safe in soil. So that's biological nutrient. This is aluminum, pure aluminum. This we would call a technical nutrient. And this gets put through industrial cycles over and over again. So
Today it's a chair, tomorrow it may be an airplane part.
it could be a can, you know. So that's cradle to cradle in terms of materials.
In America, McDonough's ideas are changing the way major U.S. corporations think about design.
That can all go back to industry or back to nature.
But in China, he's being embraced by the Chinese government.
What was exciting is that this...
Why have you focused so much of your energy on trying to transform China?
80% of the Chinese in cities don't have good drinking water. They don't either have enough or the quality is so bad that they'll kill themselves drinking it. It's